So let's jump right in. There's Eddie Spaghetti in his spot in Florida behind the glass, I think is where he is right now. And now back on his perch, seated high atop show business, ready to break it all down. By the way, I dropped in anticipation of the Blues playoff series beginning. I dropped our mutual pal Jon Hamm a best wishes note and muzzle tov on his team getting into the Stanley Cup mix there. And I also had just watched Double Indemnity. Dig this, Hench. You know, in the age now where Bill Burr is doing stage performances of Glengarry Glen Ross, Jon Hamm in the Fred McMurray role in Double Indemnity, right out of the gate, we're cooking with gas. How say you?
Well, I thought when you started, like I sent you sent Jon Hamm a mazel tov on his hockey team that's about to lose in five.
Yeah, whatever. They get
How
in. That's a
about
nice story.
how about his unbelievably good show on Apple, Your Friends and Neighbors, where he's kind of playing the anti-Draper in that Amanda Peet cheats on him. He gets fucking shit canned. Like it's so good. It's almost too close to the bone for me because like he gives these speeches like about the houses and the cars and the SAT tutors and college. And I'm like, I start flop sweating as Sophie on our tour, and of course you're not allowed, the kid can never know that what these things cost. It's like, oh, it's always, it's everyone lives in the magic world now where, money has no meaning. And so she started this college tour with her heart set on a school that costs $27K a year. And I was like, oh, let's make that fucking happen. That's gotta, let's really push her in that direction, even if it is in another country. Fine. And then of course we get to Wesleyan and she's like, oh my God, that place is awesome. And I'm like, right. It's 67K a year. And I'm gonna pay full freight wherever she goes. There's no breaks for Henchy. I'm not a lucky guy. But so then I say to Heather, I'm like, hey, how about this idea? Why don't we do this? Like we fucking bribe her basically. I say, we'll we'll pay this much for college, and anything less than that goes in your bank account for day one of the real world. So if you save us $160,000 between Wesleyan and St. Andrews,
I like this.
and you have 160,000 to take your friends out to dinner when you're 21, and then Heather was like, no, I don't think we should do that. And I'm like, what? That's a great idea. Like, can we at least run it by her? Like, and by the way, how does fucking Vassar get away with charging $8,000 a year more than Harvard, Princeton, and Yale? Like that's 70 for Vassar. And again, as we were talking before the show, unless it's Harvard, Princeton, or Yale, no one gives a shit anyway. It might as well be Cal State Chico. No one fucking cares. No one gives a shit about your transcript. But anyway,
I think the minimum standard is legitimately, and then in fact there is a subsection of Hollywood celebrities that don't get their college degrees, but then there are like the geniuses of the world. Like, did Bill Gates, did he get a degree? But like there are any number of examples of guys who just couldn't, of people who are wildly successful, the most successful among us, who just couldn't hack it. What the man dictated to you are the steps you need to take to professional success in this world. And it's been debunked over and over again. The other thing too is, quickly, I don't mean to interrupt your point, but I'm struck by because we're in this process too with our girly with going to college. And it's the same thing I always say about driving around Los Angeles. When you drive around Bel Air and Beverly Hills and Malibu and all the beach towns and all the Tony neighborhoods and all the mansions that populate all those different places and all the fancy restaurants and all the places that sell $1,000 sneakers in Beverly Hills and all of those, I am struck by that there are enough people in our society to fill those houses, let alone in one town in these United States. Where is all this wealth to populate
It's
all
so
the
funny.
high, forget the house, but the colleges? Who is, like you say, full
It's just,
freight?
yeah.
There are tons of people out there paying full freight for all of these schools, and it ain't just Ivy Leagues, as you say.
Yeah, because if your kid goes, oh, I want to go to Vassar, and then you're like, oh, you got in, okay, great. So to pay 70,000 for college means you have to make 140, before taxes. You have to make 140, have half of that go to the government, and then have your remaining 70 go to fucking Professor Mandelbaum at Vassar. Like, what the fuck? Who's got that kind of money laying around? Like, I mean, I do, but who else does? And then when I do the same thing when I drive through Beverly Hills, I'm like, who lives in that house? And by the way, you do a drive through Beverly Hills, and I'm like, I would be the poorest person in these neighborhoods. Like, I'm like, who, and I'm middle of the road in this neighborhood, when Clayton Kershaw answers the door on Halloween to give the kids candy bars, you're like, this guy, I know exactly how much this guy makes. And I know his kids could go to Vassar, but they'd be too smart for that. Anyway, yeah, it's insane. I mean, and obviously we have this massive wealth disparity in America. We have the destruction of the middle class in America. And yet these campuses are all in perpetuity filled with kids with backpacks. Like, and I find it to be such a grift. And I don't really get how the grift goes on. But speaking of college, let's talk about the draft.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that was a pretty good transition. I thought you were
I know
fumbling
Spaghetti's on the
as you
clock.
got to the goal line there.
Spaghetti's on the clock, much like my Patriots will be soon.
All right. I thought you were going Ernest Biner there and fumbling just before you got to pay dirt. All right, we can jump in on the draft, and I'll just say as a side goat here, goat of the week. The people who are in the crosshairs for me. We've reached the station, and I bellyache endlessly about the eternal, and it is now 365 draft process. We talk about pro football is a 365 sport that has it over on all the other sports because of its schedule, but the draft in and of itself is now its own process separate from the NFL. I mean, like Daniel Jeremiah, for instance, calls the Chargers games with Matt Money Smith. By the way, on Tuesday, I'll be on with Matt Money Smith if you happen to be in Los Angeles on AM 570. Always fun there. So he cares about the current game, but he is way more. His life is devoted to the NFL draft, and more people sort of that's the element of not just sports, but of football, and not just football, but pro football, that they're focused on just 365. Their whole life is devoted to the draft. It's fascinating to me. And we haven't really gotten much closer to divining which quarterback is going to be good and which one's going to bust out once they get out there in autumn. But I have to give my goat this week to in the eternal process. In the last week or two of it, now we have all the cosplayers who like to issue their mock drafts. They're not experts. They just like to put it out there. For what? I'm not clear. Like, are you gambling on it? Okay. If you want to wager, like who decided that if you watch football, that part of that requires that you issue your mock draft? Like when you do a bracket for March Madness, it's because you're throwing $20 on it at the office and seeing how good. Like, there are no stake. Why does everybody? What is with this? The narcissism of everybody who does. If you're like, well, social media requires I let the world know who I am mocked. Nobody cares who you mock draft into these things. But what we've reached is now the confirmation of the actual experts like Daniel Jeremiah's mock drafts by like, I'm reading the tea leaves here. This is what I think is going to happen. Who gives a shit what you think is going to happen, man? Like your opinion on what might happen is irrelevant unless you're an actual expert and whether or not you think Shedeur Sanders is a good fit for your team.
Listening to this elitism, only the experts know what's good for your immune system. It's such a pointy-headed libtard. Well, the funny thing is about all this, the so-called experts, is the citizen blogger who's like, this is my draft. At least that person is not being fed bogus information from the teams. They're not talking to
Hmm.
the GM. The GM obviously doesn't want to tell McShay what he's actually doing. So, the experts are actually trying to divine what's going to happen through a forest of misinformation from the teams, and obviously with the Patriots having the number 4 pick, I mean, I don't care if it's, Devil Dog 35 post his mock draft. If he says that Carter or Hunter make it to the Patriots at 4, I'm like, oh my God, thank God, Devil Dog is down. I'm like, it doesn't matter who the source is. If anybody says one of those two guys makes it to the Patriots, I get so excited. Like I have a
That's
bouncing.
why that's why I'm complaining about it, Hench. You should know me well enough that it is not narcissism, but vanity that requires that you pay attention to me, or my own vanity that asks that you pay attention to me. And that's what I can't stand. Is it like a moth to a flame? I gotta look at, I don't care who you are. If you do it, I'm resentful of the fact that I have to look at it, no matter who you are. That's why I can't resist. I can't resist her song. Devil Dog 69's mock draft 4.0. I have to see who he has, even though I have no goddamn interest in who he is or what he thinks. I got to look and see who he has. It's the worst.
And then I go, oh, Shedeur Sanders is in this guy's elevator shaft out of the top 10.
It's
Then I
also,
see.
by the way, as we talk about like what you want at in the year of the Lord 2025, and if you're 18 and where you want to go to college, and despite all of our warnings, yours and mine, to our kids, they still want what they want, and they still think they need to be in one place or another in life. Um, if you go 10 years younger than that, if you ask the average 10-year-old what you want to be when you grow up now, I mean, it really was. I know I'm old, but fireman or football man. Those were the pretty much like I actually, as I've said before, my weird thing was that when I was 3, I wanted to work at the gas station because I thought that was cool. And then I changed that at age 4. I wanted to be a garbage man. And then Mo Dameshek had a conversation serious with the old man about like, does he have self-esteem issues that he wants to be a gas station guy or a garbage man? And then at age 5, I let them know I had changed it again. I wanted to be God. And so then they had moved on from my self-esteem issues. But if you ask a 10-year-old now what they want to be, they want to be a YouTube star. That, I mean, for real, like ask ask them, they want to be like on YouTube, or they want to be an influencer, they want to be on TikTok. And it's the same. I think now people don't want to, because that's like the shortcut, basically. Like if you want to be Kevin Hench, you 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 write and you write and you write every day, and you get better and better at writing. And you want to get a big bicep, you lift a weight every day. And if you want to get to be a great comedy writer like Kevin Hench, you work at it every day, and you come through not after a month or a year, but after a decade or so, and you're getting to where you want to be. And that's, I think, I'm not trying to heap too much praise on Daniel Jeremiah, but, worked as played football, scout, works his way up, gains the knowledge required to do the job effectively. And then there's the other side. I think the sports version of that is, I want to be Adam Schefter. Like, and I think now everybody wants to just be Adam Schefter. Nobody wants to actually do like as I've said many times, if you are a draft guru guy and or woman, and you're going to be on TV talking about these people, then you should sit there and watch all the tape. You should watch the right guard at New Mexico State who might get drafted in the 6th round, so that you have a cogent opinion of that cat, so you can talk about him. But that's not what most people want to do. What most people want to do is just take the shortcut, jump to like, I'm hearing that Shedeur Sanders is in play for the Steelers. Like, what do you know? You don't know anything about anything. You're hearing things. You're passing off, as Hench just said 5 minutes ago, something that an agent from one side or the other heard, and they're trying to perpetuate it. And that's the other thing. It's not just mere like, I heard a rumor that might happen. It's that those agents want something to happen. So they're trying to more than just will it. They're trying to get it into the bloodstream to make it so. It all stinks is the bottom line. And yet I'm obsessed with it. How say you?
Well, it's funny that you make these distinctions between professions, because the best draft guru in the world, is a comedy writer. He writes for Bill Maher. His name's Jay Yarrow, and he does the draft every year. So he has his picks every year, and you can go back and see how he did. And it's way better than any GM.
Really?
And he does, I don't know why, like he's like, he texts us like, he will say, like, you got to see the tape on this right guard. You're like, you've seen the tape. How do you get tape on the right guard? I don't know how do you know all this? And his batting average is insane. And I wish he was the GM of the Patriots. And we're working on.
What if he got hired from
But
the writing
we're
staff
kind
of Bill Maher?
We've got some avenues. We're trying to get his genius into the room. Then when he finally does, it'll be his first bad year ever. But he came up with this thing that was like, he's so smart. It's nuts. He came up with this whole thing where he was like,
did he write the great bit about how Donald Trump is different in person?
we knew that was coming, but so he, listen, 6'3", 235, 4.8% body fat. All we got to do is see how he does.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to distract you. Continue.
Got to see how he does in the shuttle run, and this guy's going top 10. So the Raiders, and again, whatever misinformation, but like that Ashton Genty to the Raiders, like that's starting to percolate.
That's not starting, for the record. That's a done deal, pretty much.
Okay,
unless somebody jumps the Raiders, he's going there.
So then what he's saying is, should the Patriots, to your point about the fog of war, the misinformation, start getting it out there like, that's our guy at 4. That's our
right.
Guy. And then, Raiders, that's your guy? He's going to be gone. So if you really want that guy, you got to come talk to us, because we know Will Campbell's going to be where you are. Our guy's going to still be there. Your guy won't be there because we're going to take him. And like, this is long, like how he's going to seed the misinformation. I'm like, why is this guy writing jokes for Bill Maher? Like, he's so good at this. And so it's like, I wish he was in charge of the Patriots war room, because I feel like what's going to happen is we're just going to draft Will Campbell at 4, and he's going to be a, serviceable left tackle who doesn't go to the Hall of Fame, while, Ty Warren ends up on the Jets, and Genty goes to the Raiders, and these guys that might go to Canton go after our short-armed left tackle.
Did you, Eddie Spaghetti? Isn't it funny? Because, like, as I always say, the distinction I always draw, that if you do this for a living, what we're doing right now, or if you're comedy writing or attempting that or getting on the stage, that you are either a narcissist or vain. Like, it's either you think the world should be paying attention to you, and so you're sharing your gifts with the world, or you want the world to pay attention to you, and you hope to convince them to do so. I am in the latter category. No offense, Hench. You're kind of more in the former category there. Most people are. It's not a knock on you in any way.
Wait, which is I'm a narcissist?
Kind of, but it's funny that you are doing this. We're talking about sports, and we do so pretty much every week, and you are as knowledgeable about the world of sports as anybody I've ever known, have insights on it at the human level, at the athletic level, historically and beyond. And yet you're sitting here heaping praise on some fellow who writes on Bill Maher like that's out of your grasp, to like straddle those two things, like to be a high-end comedy writer and know about sports. Like, this guy is a wonderkind. Like, what are we doing when the Patriots, that's what we're doing.
When the Patriots took the Penn State tackle last year, Wallace, Jay texted me immediately and was like, this guy's, first of all, he knows immediately, he's like, that guy can't play left tackle. Like, forget it. So, like, there's not going to be any, you're not going to draft a right tackle and play him at left tackle. And then he's like, meh. And then it's funny because you always get excited. You're like, this guy started 500 games in college. Like, this guy, you're like, oh my God. And then they show that sizzle reel, and even his sizzle reel is not good. These are the pancake blocks. I thought, this is the block where he drives the guy into the goalpost. No, he's holding his own. And then, he gets to the NFL and he's just another huge guy who can't block anybody. And you're like, Jay knows immediately. He's like, oh, nope, that guy can't, you're like, oh, what about this edge rusher? Nope, that guy's never getting to the quarterback. He's right every time. So it's not humility. This is based on results.
I get it. Like actual expertise versus frauds like Dameshek who really don't know. But right, this guy's the real deal. I get it. I think though, one way or the other with your Patriots, the thing I just like keep coming back to in my head, and you, Hench, when Brady moved on to Tampa, and the recurring thing that people will always say, if I bellyache about the Steelers, as a for instance, people will always say, like, you don't know how good you have it, man. You're a Pittsburgh Steelers fan and you're complaining about a bad 18 months or whatever. Try being a blank fan, all of that kind of stuff. And in the 21st century, it has everything to do, obviously, with whether or not you have the real deal at QB. Yeah, if you have that, you're in good shape. Like every year, we can be in April, you could be celebrating the 4th of July, or it could be November, whatever part of the calendar you're in, you can feel fairly comfortable. Like, yeah, my team matters because we have that good quarterback. Where like,
hey, I don't want to cut you off, but the irony, I think this is what just happened. 10 minutes ago, you asked Spaghetti a question about narcissism and vanity, and then talked for 10 minutes. How the fuck? Wasn't he asked a question? I thought you started to ask a question.
Well,
like, not really. All my questions are just setups for my own fucking monologue. Like,
thank you.
Rephrase
Finally, you're getting it.
And then let Spaghetti answer it.
That's why I didn't even jump in. That's why I didn't even jump in, because I knew that Dave was like,
I was literally sitting here I forgot Spaghetti's answer to the question, and then I was like, oh, I don't think he gave one.
All right, well, listen, speak then, Spaghetti. Put your voice on record.
It is funny because I know you so well that I didn't even turn off the mute on my mic because I knew, like, Hench, you remember in like the NBA All-Star game, I think when like Tracy McGrady like alley-oops it off the backboard to himself, like that was exactly what Shek was doing there. So I was like, yeah, he's got this. But I think you're asking me about the sports level who works in this world, as I may be a unicorn because it makes me retract from sports and I can't read, watch, consume anyone else's mock draft or articles or whatever. I watch the games and the games make me miserable. So I am like completely in this very small minority of weirdo.
Well, also pushed out by your beloved heroes, as we noted. I don't think Hench was actually a part of it becoming official. So just for the record now, Hench, now that you're back on here, I mean, the statistical unlikelihood in the NHL, where there are 30 teams, that all 3 of our teams on one podcast could miss the playoffs is pretty grim. And I don't know what that says about us and what we're trying to do, but maybe it is a statement from the sports gods. But my other point, Hench, is that you're in the catbird seat. Just like your daughter and my daughter, like if you are in spring semester of high school, these are the stretches of life that you really have to take full advantage of. When you are the lame duck in a good way. I mean, like, short of flunking out of high school down the home stretch, there's nothing that they can do to you. High school can't hurt you anymore. Like, hey, finals are coming up. Like, yeah, long as I don't get a 0 on them, I graduate. So you can't do anything to me. I'm on to the next stage. That's kind of where you sit right now. Whatever happens in this draft, the Vrabel thing is nice and all of that. But the bottom line is you have Drake May. You're in good shape for the next decade at least. And me and Eddie Spaghetti have to just nervously sit here endlessly with no resolution either. Like the idea that Eddie Spaghetti, and I still think it's going to happen no matter what. I know everybody has all their opinions on this. I still think in the QB league, Shedeur Sanders is going to wind up. If he isn't a Brown, he's going to be a Giant. I still stand by that. Unless they allow somebody to jump them in the draft like the Raiders, and in which case they still need to get a quarterback. You're nowhere without it. And if the Steelers do wind up with Shedeur Sanders, that won't satiate me. I'll be like, let's see what happens, but I'll be back in that thing of, is he the answer? You have the answer. You're in great shape. And now that brings me to this. Since we're short on time, I wanted to ask you guys this. So the Patriots with Drake May are now in good shape. And I think Drake May cuts a likable figure, and Mike Vrabel, in a football sense, is likable. I don't know how much fun he'd be if he were hanging out with the fellas. I'm on the he's an interesting, like, would he be fun to hang out with, or is he football hardo guy? And in that context, you're like, I'd like that guy to be my head coach, but I don't know that he'd be cool to have a beer with. You could talk me into him being a good hang too. Either way, you have all this going for you. They're kind of likable. Belichick, Tom Brady, the myriad cheating scandals made the Patriots an unlikable dynasty. If the Celtics win the title this year, given the way the NBA flows, I think they're kind of a likable team. I'm going to start with Eddie Spaghetti here, since he's not tied to the Patriots. Are the Patriots the most loathsome dynasty of our lifetime, Eddie Spaghetti? I have a list of candidates in front of me here. Nobody likes a dynasty. People eventually get tired, if nothing else, of a dynasty, even if it's Patrick Mahomes or whatever else. People, I'd like to see him lose. I'm tired of this. The Patriots were different. People hated them.
I think across the board, you'd probably agree with most people. I'm a weird one again. I'm a Giants fan. We did beat them. That being said, Belichick acting the way Belichick did, although now Belichick is out to lunch, but the way he did act in those Patriots days where he was loathsome. It's like, guy, just answer the reporter's question, just move on, be done with this. And like Brady just beating up everyone, except for Eli those 2 times. It's one of those things where you just hate the guy because he's so good, but Brady did this incredible recovery of his image by going to Tampa. He seemed more of a fun guy, while Bill was kind of losing games there and just still being miserable. So I'm like, oh, maybe they weren't as bad. Maybe I just hated him in the moment. And I always love hockey, so I hate these hockey dynasties more. I hated the Penguins, but I think when push comes to shove, with just how dominant they were versus other phenomenal quarterbacks, with your guy Ben and with Peyton and all the other teams they beat through the AFC, I mean, it was their division for 20 years. I think it's probably the answer.
Hench, I have my list, and I maybe missed some. Late 80s, early 90s, Bad Boys Pistons. Nobody liked that team outside of Motor City.
And a terrible
Laettner.
product. Made basketball bad.
That's right.
Patriots didn't make football uninteresting to watch.
I think
Bad Boys ruined a sport.
I shouldn't have started with that, because that was my point that you beat me to. Good for you. Duke with Christian Laettner and Coach K and Hurley. Everybody hated them outside of Durham, although then they did win some percentage of front-running fans in Sports America. I mentioned the Patriots. I think an interesting one is I don't feel like people hated the Kobe Shaq Lakers. I don't feel like people had a big opinion of them in either direction, but they were such big personalities. Maybe it's because they were the yin and yang, Shaq and Kobe, and we learned in the midst of their dynastic stuff that they were kind of at odds with each other. And obviously, tell me how my ass tastes and all that. But the 80s Lakers were hated, I feel like, by one half of America. And then the 80s Celtics were hated by the other half. The Raiders with Madden, the Devils of the mid 90s, the Flyers of the mid 70s, just because they were fighting everybody. I'm not saying I hated them as a pitcher. I don't remember them. The Yankees eternally. I feel like the Yankees are the go-to in a way. They have risen above all the others in a way like that. Mentioning the New York Yankees tells you that we're talking about an evil empire more than any other reference. Kind of like I always say, we need to update, that defense is good, but it's no 85 Bears. It's like, there have been good defenses since 1985. Let's update that reference. I feel like the evil empire New York Yankees, we've moved past them. The Dodgers, the Dodgers in their actions in the last couple of few years should make them much more hateable than the Yankees. And then I feel like the Dallas Cowboys, by proclaiming themselves America's team, have to be in the running for this. Hench, how say you? I think you just said the answer there, and the other half of that answer is the hockey version of the Detroit Pistons.
Well, it's interesting because, as much as I hate the Yankees and was delighted when my plane touched down and I saw that Devin Williams blew another one, so great. But the most recent Yankee dynasty, if you can think back to when they used to win World Series, it's quite a ways in the rearview mirror. But I've always said they didn't Jeter, Mariano Rivera, Posada, these are homegrown guys. Like they didn't go out and get Ohtani, Mookie Betts, and Freddie Freeman. Like the way that the Dodgers are doing it is much more evil empire than the way the evil empire did it.
Right.
An example that takes us overseas that is just insane is Manchester United was the Uber dynasty of English football for almost 20 years, winning, 3/4 of the titles. But, Ryan Giggs, Wayne Rooney, all these guys were homegrown guys. There weren't any like crazy big expenditures. And then Manchester City went, hold on, there's no salary cap. And there are these financial rules. And if you break them, you get a firm talking to. Like, what the fuck? So Manchester City just went out and purchased a half dozen titles, 4 in a row. Like every guy on the field is going to be the best player his country has ever produced. And it's like, oh, in soccer, you can literally just buy a championship. Like if you're just willing to spend $1 billion, you're going to win the championship. And talk about like the Pistons ruining basketball. Manchester City, it's like, oh, it would be like the Brooklyn Nets just deciding we're going to become a dynasty. Like they were the losers, they were the other team, and then they got that crazy dough and just bought not just a title but bought a dynasty. And so this year with Liverpool kind of doing it the right way, I'm sure soccer fans are very relieved to see the end of the Manchester City dynasty.
I hear you, man, but the paradox of that, red, white, and blue, American loving in every way, apple pie and all of that, the paradox is, of course, that what everybody really wants is, or those who root for parity, is that what they want is communism. And what that is basically what, hard salary cap leagues are doing, basically, is communism, which is, in a way, it reveals like the Dodgers are heroic on some level, right? And the Pirates are the villains, that they're the ones who have obviously billions of dollars. They can say whatever they want about the bottom line.
This is a good, more. I know Spaghetti has to go. So this has led us, your communism the
correct answer is, you're right. It's the Pistons. It's the New Jersey Devils who almost killed the sport. And it's weird that in the context of baseball, which has no, real hard cap or anything, that the Florida Marlins didn't lead to an example of a generation's worth of teams out there. Like wouldn't Jacksonville Jaguars ownership just buy a championship if that route were available to them? But no, it's funny in baseball that you don't see that was more of a disgrace than anything else in the like the self-policing is a fascinating thing, but we do have to go.
I'm gonna do the mic drop and then I'm gonna sign off. Go ahead. Because it was your comment about communism that led to the right answer of the most hated dynasty of all time, the Soviet Red Army hockey team, which is why the 1980 U.S. hockey team is the greatest moment in sports history.